on this computer. There we go. I think it worked. Hey, Adam, you see that record thing, yeah? At the top left, maybe?
Yeah, it's going.
Okay, cool. Okay, so we'll just go ahead and get started. What we're gonna do, we're doing a few things differently. What we're gonna have this meeting, whereas last quarter, what all of our meetings were we had professors come in and talk about a particular research topic that they were interested in, and then we would just talk about that. We're still gonna do that twice this quarter. And then the other 2 times we're gonna do this if it works out well. We'll see. The 2 speakers that will be, I forget the exact dates, but they're in the email. Eric Schwitzgable is doing a talk. I forget the title because it's really long. And then who else? Adam Harmer, which he hasn't told me what he's talking about. But those are the 2 professors that are going to be talking eventually. Again, in the email, there's the dates as to when those are going to be. As for the other 2 meetings, this is how we're going to try and do it and see if it's fun. Hopefully it will be. We have this wheel that we found online, and I did get an ad blocker, Adam, because last time I was here, it was showing me ridiculous ads that I didn't want everyone to see.
I mean, that's because your search history.
They're not reflective of my search engines, I promise. Okay. So we have this ad, no, look. We have this wheel, which is going to be questions that we're asking each other, or, whenever you introduce yourselves. And then I have a second wheel here about some cool philosophy questions. As you see, we have Santa, baby Hitler, classic philosophy questions. I'm sure you've all taken baby Hitler classes and such. So we're going to see how that goes. We're going to talk about those things. Okay, so we'll go through, we'll kind of popcorn style. Introduce ourselves. You could always introduce your major and like maybe how far along you are, like, 4th year, whatever. And then we'll spin and we'll each answer whatever this question is. So I'll go first and then I'll have Adam go after that. So first I need to spin the wheel, and it makes it really fun too, right? It makes it seem like you won something at the end. So my name's Kevin, firstly. That's a hard one. My name's Kevin, and I'm a philosophy major, president of the Philosophy Club. I'm into ethics and philosophy of religion, mainly. What would you do with $10 million? I would have to say, and I don't want to seem like I'm some sort of saint or something, but I feel like I don't know what I would do with 10 million. I feel like I'd donate like just a gang load of it. I don't know if I need that much. Buy a house and then not be in debt when I get a degree. So that would be nice. I'd say that would be my choice. Beyond that, I will go for, I'm going to go Zane, if you want to go next.
Okay. I'm Zane, an anthropology major. It's my 3rd year. Is there something else I'm supposed to, if I could interview a famous person, who would you choose? Living or dead, doesn't matter. I guess like it's philosophy, like Nietzsche. That would be interesting.
That would be. And then you can go ahead and choose whoever you want to go next. We'll kind of go through everyone on the list.
Nicholas Lowe.
Hey, I'm Nick. I'm a 2nd year philosophy major, philosophy psychology major. I like philosophy, or I have interest in like philosophy, mind, philosophy, psychology. Yeah, a lot of existentialism, stoicism here and there. If you can interview, again? Yeah, kind of similar to Zane. I'd probably like to see Nietzsche or Schopenhauer like angry rants on like existence and them yelling at people. Maybe beat a like horse or something.
Beat a horse.
For anyone who gets a joke.
Okay, good stuff. And then you could choose someone. Hey, by the way, do you guys hear? Is it just me, or do you actually hear the stuff on the website too? It's doing this really obnoxiously loud music. Okay.
Oh no, it's just you.
Okay, it's okay. I'm glad because it's insanely loud. Okay, go ahead and choose someone else.
Other Nick.
Nice. I was hoping you would pick me.
Lamau.
So my name is Other Nick. You will refer to me as Other Nick for the whole rest of the quarter. Thank you. Pronouns they, them, there. I'm a second-year PhD student in philosophy. Favorite pizza topping? Well, definitely pineapple, right? That's not even controversial at this point. Everybody just completely agrees with me about pineapple. So closed book, good. Popcorn Nawal.
And then also just to interject here for a second too, Noel. We're just going to skip over Elsa too. She's unable to talk right now, so we can skip over her. But go ahead, Noel. I'm interested.
Okay. My name is Noel. I'm a second-year philosophy major.
Let's see.
Ooh, this is a hard question. I have many favorite songs.
Or artist or band or something, I guess, too.
Okay. Favorite artist right now, Ty Segall.
Good stuff. And then if you want, who hasn't gone yet? Adam, Ariana, Ethan, Julio.
Next person is Eddie.
Hello, I'm Eddie. I'm a third-year philosophy major, and my favorite pizza topping. Usually when I get pizza, I get like everything on top of it, like when you get to go to Blaze Pizza or whatever. So I'll say Canadian bacon. And I'm interested in morality, ethics, and philosophy of mind.
Okay, and then Eddie, if you want to choose one more person real fast too.
Who's next? Who's on here?
You can go what? Ethan, Ariana, Julio, and Adam, I think.
Okay, Ariana.
Hi, I'm Ariana. I kind of came in late, so I hope that I answer everything right. So what would I do with $10 million? I have no idea. Probably donate it to a charity, but like a real charity, because you know how some charities like keep half of it. And this is my first year at college. It's just UCR in general. So I think I'm one of the youngest. I don't know, because I came in late. And then I'm just kind of interested in everything because I'm so brand new to philosophy. I don't really have a bias or like a favorite yet. But
Nice. Good stuff. Thank you. And then let me see. Who else? Let me go down the list. Adam and Julio. I'll just go ahead and choose for the rest. Julio, if you want to go, and then we'll save Adam for the last because no one really cares. So let's go with Julio if you're there.
Yeah, can you guys hear me?
Uh-huh.
Okay. Well, I'm Julio. I'm a second year philosophy major. Well, second year in college, but recently switched over to philosophy, and I'm into theology and those kinds of things. And yeah, if I had to choose one animal to have as a pet, which animal would you choose? Probably what I already have, which is a dog. Yeah, just a dog.
Good stuff. It's practical.
Yeah.
And then lastly, we'll go with Adam if you want to introduce yourself too. And I didn't skip anyone, right? Did I skip anyone?
Yeah, you skipped me.
I skipped Ethan. Let's do Ethan first. Adam,
Okay.
you can wait.
Yes, I can.
Yeah, sorry about that. I'm Ethan. I'm a first year psych major, and my favorite philosopher, smart person, it's probably got to be Plato. It's so boring, but
No, I agree. Yeah, we use philosopher and smart person synonymously, clearly. So those we just put a little hyphen there. So thank you, Ethan. And then lastly, if you want to go, Adam.
Yeah. Well, my name is Adam, though as Kevin reiterated, not that anyone cares. So I'm fourth year philosophy major. And I don't know, I'm interested in a lot of stuff, but I guess mostly ethics. If I could change my name, I don't know. I guess it depends on like where I'm living. Like if I moved out to China or something, then I'd go with a super Chinese sounding name. But I kind of like my name. But Alexander is pretty cool. Or Maximilian, something with an X in it. Those names are always cool.
Yeah, X is definitely a cool letter. Cool.
It's like
Thank you, Adam.
letter.
Okay, so which ones did we not get? Favorite TV show, favorite movie? We got a couple that we didn't hit. Cool. That'll be more for, I don't know, next time. And then, nope. We have a second list, or a wheel. This one, okay, so this is what we're gonna do. What we've decided to do this philosophy meeting is we're not gonna break up into groups or anything like that. We're just gonna do it in a big group here. And we're gonna talk about some philosophy stuff. We'll kind of play it out, see how much we want to talk about each particular thing. We chose specific philosophy things that we thought might be interesting. Some of them you might have heard about before, other ones you didn't. So I will go ahead, we'll spin the wheel, and then depending on what we hit, I'll kind of try and explain what we were going there, just to keep certain things. I mean, if we don't hit Santa, you'll have no idea what we intended here. So we'll just see, or maybe we'll hit it first. Okay. Okay, so this one, our idea is to see what we individually think, if we have any ideas, opinions on the debate that has happened between these famous philosophers here of whether or not humans are innately good or innately evil, and how we think about that. We don't have to go individually or anything like that, or if you don't want to go at all, if you don't have an opinion, feel free to not go at all. We're just going to talk about it a bit. I'll start though and just say I've thought about this a good bit, and I'm gonna be the pessimist and say I think they're innately evil. But it's kind of hard to determine. It's kind of taking something and turning it into black or white, right? And it's like, well, can you really say all humans are innately born good or innately born bad? But it seems like a lot of us are pretty bad. I don't know. Maybe that's the pessimism in me though too.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Okay, based on your viewpoint that you just told us, if human nature is inherently like animalistic and doesn't have the human qualities of like moral decision making, then does that mean animal nature is like inherently evil?
I would think that, like most like philosophers, like I kind of consider animals to be amoral. And I guess maybe like, yeah, again, in the same way you could consider that humans are born completely amoral, like, I don't know, blank slate, I guess, right? But it's, do you have a predisposition or a predilection towards evil or bad? I would say animals are amoral. Even to the point where like a lot of the time when people say that humans, you know, like, oh, you're like an animal or something, that's saying like, oh, you're really bad or you're doing something bad. But I don't know. I guess that's like not a moral connotation when you say someone's like an animal, more so just like their behavior, you know, not like you're like an animal, you're doing something morally wrong like animals do.
Non-social condition.
Yeah, exactly, right? So it seems like animals are amoral. But again, it just, for me, this debate always seemed a bit weird, right? And I don't know if anyone else feels similar with this, but it always seemed a bit weird that taking a topic, like if people are born good or born evil, or if they're predispositioned to be good or evil or whatever, and just having it black or white, you know, you're either A or B, there's no in between or something like that. I don't know if anyone else has opinions on that.
I've got an opinion.
Please.
I don't know how to express it though. Well, I guess it's actually more of a question about your view. If we're so you're saying we're naturally inclined to be evil, but you want to distinguish that from amorality, or are you saying that amorality in itself is evil? Or because I imagine you distinguish the two, right? Because you say animals are amoral, but people are actually evil, not just amoral.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So it seems like animals being amoral have no ability to be anything but amoral. I
Yeah.
feel as though they
Yeah.
have no ability to commit moral actions.
Yeah, there's no culpability involved.
Yeah, exactly, right?
But humans do have the ability, and we're naturally inclined toward the evil. But you're saying that if we just follow like the animalistic instincts or whatever, that's automatically evil?
I don't believe so.
Or it's only when like we let it completely take over us, I guess. Like I guess what's your rationale behind behind a human person being animalistic? What makes that evil
Oh, I
rather
see what you
than
mean.
just an animal being animalistic, right?
I see what you mean. So I guess like it would be the you know, if a human being and an animal were to act the exact same in
Yeah.
exact same scenarios, the animal you would not judge morally, but the human you still might judge morally for doing something wrong. Let's say if they I don't know, kill something or something, right? Where the rationale behind a human being culpable for their actions and being, you know, ability to accrue moral responsibility for those actions, whereas an animal couldn't, I guess, would just be the ability of us to understand morality. I guess there's a lot of people who think differently, right? It could be just like a more advanced level of consciousness or something.
Yeah.
But it seems as though our ability to understand morality
Yeah.
is an important key.
So just in one way or another, it's something distinctive about human nature that
Seems
separates us from whatever that thing is, right? We don't need to be too specific. So that distinguishing factor, X, somehow is geared towards moral goodness then, and that's why when we decline away from that, we're judged as being morally evil. Would you say that's the case, or are you thinking along different lines?
I
Because
feel
like,
like
because go ahead.
Kevin.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry. I feel like Kevin has the weird or the idea of like animals don't have like the natural intention or knowledge of it. Like, for example, if a dog took a shit on the carpet, right? It's like fuck, it took a shit on the carpet, but like now we're just, you know, dog nature kind of. You could beat it to like actually don't do that, please. You can yell at it to not do so. But like if a human were to like shit on the carpet, you'd be like, what the hell? You have the consciousness to not do this, right?
Presumably, hopefully,
hopefully,
yeah,
God,
yeah.
please. Type of shit on the carpet, piss off my roommate. Anyway, yeah. So with that, it's kind of like humans get this natural reaction from it. So for example, if you walk down the road and you saw like a dead body, you'd be like, shit. Like this is like the Monksianist perspective. Like you saw your parents' dead body, you'd freak the fuck out. You naturally get the response, which is like an innate good thing. Or if you saw like a shit on the floor, you naturally don't go like, why is the shit there? It's like, no, you're like, why the hell? You're just like, ew, disgusting. Why the hell? Why did someone leave in a toilet bowl? Versus rationalizing it. And I think with animals, the difference is due to the fact that it's kind of like dog sees shit, whatever. Dog doesn't care. Dog eats it. Who cares?
Thank you for your scatological observations.
Thanks.
Okay, just to round off, and then I'll let someone else speak because no one wants to listen to me. I guess what I was kind of getting at is like Aristotle, for example, will distinguish man from animals based on his intellect, and then some of the later medieval philosophers will also add in the faculty of the will, and it's these things that distinguish man from the beasts or the animals, right? So intellect, of course, being our inclination towards truth, you know, widely conceived, just, you know, being able to rationalize whatever. And then the will being geared toward goodness, which can be taken as moral goodness or just, you know, things that we find pleasing to us, but on a rational level, rather than just pure, you know, rather than just purely being based in sensitivity and whatnot. So I'm wondering if you'd have to, if you're going along that route, you would just have to say that, you know, in one respect, human nature is geared, inclined, whatever, naturally disposed toward goodness. And in another respect, it's geared towards badness, you know, just taking as far as like human nature is like designed, avoiding any theological, you know, assumptions, but designed, so to speak, you know, for goodness. But naturally, we, you know, kind of are fighting, you know, an uphill battle where, you know, where it's just easier to fall into what we think of as morally evil. But someone else please talk, because I'm tired of hearing myself ramble. That's annoying. Sorry.
I can say too, Adam, that I think that's interesting though. That I mean that almost has like a not to like, assume your beliefs or something like that, but that seems like a quite a religious belief too, right? um that like maybe perhaps just interjecting like religious beliefs in there, that like God made everyone good, but the world sort of makes it quite easy to be evil. So there you could say, well, humans, because here with this debate it seems as though we're discussing specifically uh not like what is common in society or something, but it seems like an innate characteristic, right, between this debate has been whether we're born, and when we're born we're innately, you know predilected towards evil or towards good acts or something like that. Now whether or not society, or whether or not the wherever we're born and how we're raised affects that, then you would be, it seems as though, under the impression that we're innately good, and it's just much easier for us to be bad. But we were made good, and when we're born, you know, we're good, and it's just easier to be bad. Sounds like a song, but I'm just reading what Elsa was typing too.
Sorry, I accidentally sent that to everyone. It was supposed to be more of a personal one-on-one combo. Sorry.
No, you're fine. I'm glad it adds to the topic, or the discussion. Sorry, I'm a super slow reader. Yeah, so I guess it depends quite heavily upon like religious beliefs can play into it as well. I would imagine like what do you think, Adam? You're good at classics, right? So like I don't know if you have any knowledge upon like religious beliefs, if any, of like, classic philosophers like Aristotle, Plato, etc. A lot of the time in like at least Greek mythology, the gods seem to be kind of mean people, right? And they're very humanized. Does that would that play, you think, into their opinions on whether people are naturally good or bad? Because even it seems as though even the gods are quite evil naturally. So it seems if humans are products of the gods, that Plato, Aristotle, Socrates might have been under the impression that humans are naturally bad too, right?
Yeah. Well, just quickly, as far as like religious beliefs go, I mean, sometimes it's kind of hard to piece together what exactly they said, because at least some scholars hold that, for example, Plato or Socrates or whoever, probably kind of gave mouth to, yeah, I believe in all the gods, just so that they could, kind of fit in the social structure and not be, whatever, the pariah for rejecting all the Zeus and whoever not. But for example, Aristotle comes out pretty clearly, just believing in one sort of, kind of overall God. Now, the God Aristotle believes in, and that he mentions in his Physics and Metaphysics, of course, isn't really anything like, the monotheistic God you get in Judaism, Islam, or Christianity. So much as I kind of like to compare it to the Force. It's just like this kind of thing that's there. But somehow or other, it's the cause, for all things that exist. But I mean, for example, it's to get back to the original question, it's Aristotle himself, who kind of has this: man is naturally disposed towards the good, even if, it's so much easier to slide into what, we might think of as morally evil. And obviously, that's not coming from any religious background of his. That's just, the way he sees the world, because he sees nature as, very ordered, very neat, so just everything has to work right for him. So I mean, that's just, one worldview. Obviously, in some of the other ancient philosophers, you'll get, like the materialists, where everything is literally just, random chance, these atoms bumping into each other. So I mean, it kind of depends on who you're talking about.
Yeah, I suppose.
But
okay, if anyone has any other last things, if they want to interject their opinions on this, we can continue this conversation, but we can't always move on too. We'll kind of play it out.
Final comment / question. So do you feel that if people have free will, that they are responsible for like being good actors or behaving morally, compared to if like, I guess, we have no control over our natural state and like our propensity for like immoral behavior?
That's a really good question. Let me think. If anyone else has any opinions on this, please. I would immediately lean towards that you would, right? Because everyone, even if you have a disposition towards evil, like an evil nature, perhaps, like you would still possibly consider yourself just as morally responsible as someone who didn't have that disposition, maybe. But it kind of seems rough, right? It seems like a rough question. Yeah, I respect that question, because it's like, well, we still want to hold people accountable for their evil actions. But can we hold them accountable, or as accountable as we ought to, if they're naturally evil, or and they don't really? Is that kind of the question you're saying? Yeah, okay, because that's kind of what I picked up there, and it's like, yeah, that saying that humans are naturally evil, or even the flip side, right? Saying that they're naturally good does certainly have effects upon moral responsibility. So yeah, on the flip side, if you say they're naturally good, can we really praise people for their good actions as much? Or if humans are naturally evil, should we give more moral praise for good actions and less for bad actions? Seems like that makes sense, but it's kind of tough to say, right? Because you're like, we still should definitely hold people responsible for their actions, but I don't know. That's my answer to the question.
On that note, I want to continue that discussion because I find this extremely interesting, and how I don't know if you guys saw the documentary. I think it was the Aaron Hernandez documentary on Netflix, and it kind of goes into this because they did an autopsy, or they did like an MRI scan of his brain after he died, and they found out there were like specific like lesions in his brain. And I'm not a psychology major. I don't understand where this was, but like that could lead to the specific like violent actions that he took, that like there were physically I guess like physical lesions where a detriment in the brain could show why he would do the immoral actions that he took, I guess. And Sam Harris is kind of like along these lines of like his idea of free will, how it's non-existent, because it's like the more we understand neurochemistry, neurobiology, we're going to come to understand that every single one of our actions is just a result of these exchanges within the brain, these neuron exchanges within the brain that we have no control over. And we can deduce every single one of our actions to like a chemical pathway sort of thing. And like the more we get into neurochemistry, like we'll understand that, I guess. So it's kind of interesting because we we can say that some people are more predisposed to good actions, and some are disposed to bad. I don't know. That was my thought.
There's no, actually that's a really cool concept, bringing the psychology idea on that. I know there's actually a few things on like at least on like psychology. I'm kind of more new to the subject this year, but if anything, it's like the frontal lobe, which kind of focuses on like consciousness and kind of more abstract areas of understanding morality. So those of like a broken frontal lobe will not understand psychopaths essentially. And there's an interesting thing. I think, oh shit, who was the guy's name? Phineas Gage, who had like a giant, if you guys heard of it, he had like this giant, like giant like metal bar that like shot up his face and like out the front of his brain through his frontal lobe. And like originally Phineas Gage was like, oh, chill, cool guy. And after he was like aggressive piece of shit, from there on out. And so it's kind of like maybe the fact that he lost, he can't really judge as much after that because he's missing a fucking frontal lobe. He's missing every part of his brain. And I think there's another one, I forgot when or even who it was, but it was some guy who was kind of a pedophile. But it really like a tumor in his brain, in the frontal lobe of his brain. So they removed the tumor and he stopped having these urges for like pedophilia. I was like, oh shit, huh? So yeah, I can't really judge him on that because the tumor's out of his control. He got into getting a tumor again, perfectly came back, they ripped it out. He died afterwards, but it's kind of like, it's really interesting in terms of like the neuropsychology of things on how you can determine or how we could judge morality on things like that.
Yeah, it's crazy because I'm reading it right now and it literally says on here, it says he suffered, like Aaron Hernandez for that, on that same story, he suffered severe damage to parts of his brain that play an important role in memory, impulse control, and behavior. And so he literally had brain atrophy. And it's like, so is it, how much are we to blame him for his actions if we can understand at a neurological level actually what's going on in his brain, and that, you know, he's essentially having neurological atrophy. And I didn't know, it's kind of interesting, you know, is he to blame, or is it all a result of just the chemical pathways in our brain, right?
Yeah, it's like biological status that he has like no control of.
Exactly.
But I think like kind of like a nature versus nurture argument to some extent, or a social versus dispositional argument for anyone who took Evo 5 of Schutzgable. If I speak too fast, tell me.
Oh,
yeah.
way too fast.
Sorry, I just threw like a line of crack before this. Anyways, so yeah, the nature versus nurture argument you guys heard before, right? Are we born like with like the nature things that make us good or bad or whatever we believe, or are things taught us like morality? And the social disposition argument is kind of similar socially. If like if you're surrounded by a bunch of Nazis, you're gonna end up being a Nazi. We've seen that with, like multiple philosophers and people. I mean, Schutzgable was done like a colloquium on that. Or disposition is like you have like inherent goodness, like the Mungsian view or so. Yeah, and I want to argue that like this is more social. You can teach people like to be good, like blank slate with Locke's idea. I don't even remember where I was going with this actually. Oh yeah, like dispositional biological things people have. Yeah. Don't be a cunt. I don't know.
Yeah, I can say too that like yeah, I mean perhaps there's a completely different option in between the two, which is just, well, humans are neither innately bad or innately good. They're just blank slate. Yeah, and there's something else too. I mean, this is a bit away from the topic. So again, I feel like this debate is specifically about innate goodness or badness, not really like where the world takes us, right? But there's, in the same realm that you guys were talking about, there's a really cool article that I remember. Adam didn't remember this, and he thought it was weird that I remember this, but it's by Susan Wolf. It's called The Physiology of an Atrocity. I remember this from like 2 years ago, us reading this in a class because I liked it. Anyways, she was talking about how we can't really hold people responsible for like certain war crimes, perhaps, because their cognitive abilities were like severely degraded so much so that we couldn't really expect them to make morally good actions or decisions rather. Now that's a bit away because now it's like, well, where's the world taking us as far as moral responsibility and such. But I always thought that was an interesting thing too, like mental psychological aspects focus pretty heavily or vary pretty heavily on whether we can keep people accountable or not for their actions. Well, let's go on and let's try and do another one of these and see where we land. We got a bunch of cool ones here, and it would be fun to try another one. So we'll see.
Let's get some Santa ethics. Shit again.
Round 2.
Yeah,
okay.
we can't stop talking about this. The fate has had it. No, we'll try again. Actually, I think I could probably just go, bah, look at that. I should have done that.
Appears.
Yeah.
It magically appears. It's like, you're stuck on this for life.
it still lands on it. Okay. How many people have heard of this? Has anyone heard of this one before? Yeah, okay. A few of us. Well, shit. Now I'm going to have to explain it for those who haven't heard of this. This one's a bit harder, right? It's like if you like the violinist wakes up in a bathtub or some shit, right? And he's like hooked up to another guy's organs. Nick, please help me.
I can explain this.
Please.
I just taught this last quarter, actually.
Okay.
So you wake up, you're not a violinist, in a hospital bed, and next to you in the bed is the most important violinist in the whole world. And so what happened is you got kidnapped by a society who loves the violinist and loves music, and the violinist is going to die unless he gets medical treatment. And the only medical treatment that'll save the violinist's life is if you have your body hooked up to the violinist and he gets to use like your blood and your kidneys and all that stuff. Then you have a choice whether or not you want to stay in bed with the violinist for 9 months while he heals, or if you want to unplug yourself from the violinist and let the violinist die and piss off the Society of Music Lovers.
The 9 months thing makes it so transparently about
No,
abortion, right? But I've heard like more than 9 months too, right? Because like it could be like a lifelong thing. I guess you can ad lib whatever little parts of the argument too.
Yeah, we'll just explain. Although this is normally used in the context of pro or anti-abortion arguments, that's not what we're doing here.
Calm down, people.
Yeah.
So there's no-
We're just talking about it as, you know, a case in its own right, you know.
Yeah, perhaps that case will have implications towards other cases, but you know, whatever. I don't want to be the first one to give my opinion every time. I'm too afraid.
Yeah, I mean,
Can I ask who came up with this argument, or this theory, hypothetical theory? Is it a philosopher or someone I might know of?
Do you by chance know, Nick, who came up with
Yeah,
this?
it's Judy Jarvis Thompson. Very famous paper, I think in like the 60s.
Okay.
I think I actually have a PDF of it. I can go look.
I've never heard of it before. That's why I'm asking.
Question. Did you do anything, and so the person who's hooked up you, did you do anything to involve yourself prior to get kidnapped with this violinist?
No.
Like, was there any action that you overtook that specifically led to this circumstance?
No, you didn't go to like an organ donor club beforehand or something. Like, no, you didn't. So this is completely randomly brought upon you.
Yeah, so there's no question that like had you done something else, you wouldn't have ended up in the situation. Okay.
It doesn't seem to be so, no.
Okay. Then understanding that I don't know, like what I'm naturally inclined to think is that no, then there is no like more reason that I have to stay tied to that person, then that I have to be supplying his life. If I was in that situation, of course, I'd probably be like, oh, if there's anything else I'd do. Like, I feel like it is a duty of goodness sort of thing. Like that's what you probably get into is like, okay, is this a duty of goodness rather than an imperative? And so a part of me would be like, I don't have to, but then I would obviously then have to dissect like if I would want to for the sake of being good. So yeah.
Yeah, no, I kind of agree with where you're going. Thank you for putting that in there, by the way, Nick. And for helping me because I would have not explained that correctly. But yeah, so I sort of agree with you, Eddie, where like I can say that I don't think it would be a morally bad action for you to like unhook yourself from them, right? But I still think there's some sort of moral worth to staying with that person, right? It certainly seems as though you shouldn't be held responsible for deciding not to help that person out. You had no part in this and it wasn't up to you, but it still seems like a pretty good thing if you were to do it. Seems like a praiseworthy action. I kind of imagine that with like when people hold the door open for me. I'm like, I didn't expect you to hold the door open for me. And if you didn't hold the door open for me, I'm not going to be like, what a bad person. But if you do hold the door open for me, I'm kind of like, hey, good for you. Thanks. You know, like that's a way easier version of it. But that's how I kind of see it too.
I have a comment. So what if it happens multiple times? You know, you do it for not 6 or 9 months and then again for 9 months and does it decrease the goodness of it if you don't do it the second time or the third time? And at what point is it like, I don't know, not a goodness issue?
That's true. Or perhaps even if it was one time that was longer than, a certain month period, if it was like a lifetime thing almost. Seems as though each successive time would would have an equal amount of moral value if you did it, but I would say it would be equal, right? Each successive time would have an equal amount of moral praiseworthiness if you did hang on, and an equal amount of, well, I guess it would be no blameworthiness if you didn't hang on, or let them hang on or whatever. Noel, you were gonna say something too, yeah?
Yeah, I was gonna say that there are like other conditions that make the scenario even more ridiculous and point out from the author's point of view why we should feel that ultimately, regardless of how like important the violinist is and how much we can appreciate his music or why his life is like worthy in itself, that is aside from the fact that he has the right to access your body, because like in the case of like abortion and fetuses, the fetus does not have a right to access um use of the mother's body for resources and like shelter and stuff like that. Only the mother can give it that right by consent.
That makes sense. And it seems like too, something that like naturally goes into the question is the I couldn't tell you exactly why they chose a violinist, other than perhaps that it was like there's a secondary question or thing of concern here, which is that person's life and their value too, right? Perhaps now this is just a violinist, and maybe they make incredible music that does something special, right? I don't know, but it seems like you could equally take violinist out for something else, like some world famous doctor that is like hot on the heels of discovering the cure for cancer or something, where it's like, well, shit, like now am I morally blameworthy for taking this? Now this is a different scenario entirely. Well, I suppose you can say entirely, this is a different scenario, but who that person is seems to play a pretty big effect as a pretty big, as to what you decide and the moral ramifications of that decision too.
Of course, we're all missing the most important point, which is, does this guy play the violin like a fiddle, or does he play Mozart concertos? Because that's a very different answer. One of those is much more valuable than the other.
Yeah.
Now,
What's the worst?
Just take a guess, Kevin. Everything you know about me, take a guess. The Mozart, obviously. Mozart's worthless.
Yeah.
We need to hear Devil Went Down to Georgia. No, I'm wondering if, this is more serious. I'm wondering if you look at the whole scenario a little differently. What it is that you're saying is that my freedom for the next 9 months is more important than this guy's life, and also anything that accrues to that life. So his freedom, everything that his art gives to the world and everything whatnot, because everything, it's a package deal, right? It's not like it's just my freedom versus his rights. Like there's something that accrues to, his, like as Noel was putting it, if you want to talk about like, okay, maybe he lacks the rights to your body or whatever, fine. But we're talking about, what are you depriving him of? Sure, he's depriving you of your freedom, okay, but then you put both on the scale, put it in terms of that, and are you as comfortable saying my freedom is worth more than his life and his freedom and all the other stuff that goes along with it? Just a thought.
Yeah,
Feel free to speak, anyone else.
I know this is like a separate argument, and technically we already have this on the wheel. But the Peter Singer argument on like whether or not we should donate or like eat meat. I guess more the donation one, because like being like in Calvinist America, we like recruit a decent amount of wealth that could be a bit more spread out across the world, or even like in the U.S. a bit more, because we definitely see the 1% like an incredibly large versus like the rest of the 50%. So it's the fact that like should those billionaires not even that. Should we, even us, like need a like a moral have a moral obligation to help out the poor? I know this is a separate argument, but I feel like it's kind of similar in some sense. If you put
Yeah.
on like the moral scale.
Yeah. No, yeah, she raised a question too there too. It seems as though, yeah, I don't know exactly how in depth they go in their thought experiment as to whether like you're legit, like now your freedom is so inhibited because let's say like you're actually like hooked up to this dude like with wires and stuff, and you like can't actually do anything. Perhaps you can't even get out of the hospital bed anymore for the rest of your life, right?
Yeah.
Do you know, Nick?
Yeah, it is basically.
It is. So like your freedom is just completely donezo now.
Yeah. But so I mean, I want to push back a little on what Adam's saying, basically, to pick up on something Nawal said earlier. So I don't think it's just freedom versus rights. I think it's rights versus rights. It's that I have a right to my body, and even if we're talking about freedom, it's that I have a right to my freedom. So it's not like we're comparing two different things that are two different kinds. We're comparing two things that are of the same kind. It's rights versus rights.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, sure. I guess that makes sense. However you want to construe it, but you're still talking about, you know, a life is involved, which has, you know, many rights that accrue to it beyond just my rights to freedom or just rights to a body. You know, I think most people would say, you know, a right to life is a little more fundamental than, I mean, you need a life before you have any other rights, right?
Well, yeah, but both people
one of
have
them
right
is
to life, right?
Yeah, but I mean, you are alive.
Yeah.
Right. Sure, you're because I mean, it's like the one of my old professors would always talk about you know, morality within a full body cast, right? You can still do moral acts, you know, insofar as, you know, you just are activating, I can't think of a better word, actualizing, that's what I'm looking for, actualizing your moral agency as in terms of free will, assuming you're of that school. You know, even apart from the ability to move or do something, you know, materially obvious, right? I don't know if this is making sense. It made sense in my head, but the once I started to say it, it's one of those things. But I don't know, just to return to the original line of thought though, I don't think it's as simple as just rights versus rights, because by making clear my claim to certain rights that the other person is infringing upon, I'm depriving the other person of much more than just rights. I think that's just the central claim I'm trying to look for. If you want to respond, I mean, feel free. I think Julio also is waiting on.
Yeah, Julio, if you want to say something too, please.
Yeah, well, it's more so having to do with the initial question. I feel that, sorry if you guys could hear that work in the back.
Oh, you're fine.
It's that it'd be heroic if you were to stay there to help the violinist, but you're not morally obligated because you wouldn't be killing the violinist, you simply be failing to save him. So I think I'd compare it to kind of, you see someone on the street who has headphones on and they can't hear anything, and you see a car that's coming, and it'd be heroic if you were to like go running and like save him, but would you be morally wrong for not saving him? I don't think so. And that's kind of, I'm kind of thinking out loud in that last part, but I think that's kind of how I compare it.
Yeah, and it runs quite in the same line as another option that we have on this wheel that you'll see kind of there, Singer's drowning child debate, right? Which is Nicholas already mentioned Singer, and is like, you know, if you see a drowning kid, I mean, there's more to this debate too, but if you see a drowning kid, and you have something, I think we use the explanation or the shit, I don't know the word, but we use, if you see a drowning kid and you're holding like a PS5 or something of a lot of value to you, is it wrong for you to not save him because it would ruin your PlayStation? You know, now you can sort of put in whatever valuable object, or shit, you can even not put in any valuable object. Are you morally blameworthy for just not saving this person? It certainly seems like it, right? Perhaps this kind of runs congruous with that. Can you really be morally blamed for just abstaining from doing something?
I know it doesn't exist here, but there's a law in France that you know, you could be prosecuted if you don't intervene in something like that, where you don't save, you know, step into and save a person if you have the situation.
And that seems pretty crazy, right? Because then it seems kind of like, now, yeah, that seems, you know, from this case, if you're a very good swimmer and they're just right there, it doesn't seem like, that seems really wrong not to save them. But there arises a lot of complications too, I suppose. Now, this is going way off of unconscious violinists, but there arise a lot of complications, like to what extent? I mean, to what extent am I possibly putting my life at risk too? Am I expected to risk my life for that person's life? I suppose this could be related back to the violinist too. I don't know. I mean, am I supposed to, you know, willingly supposed to give up my life? Now, I'll still be alive. Like Adam said, I can still certainly, you know, commit or do moral things. And I can still, you know, there are people with, you know, a full paralysis that still live exceedingly valuable lives. So certainly you could say, well, you can still lead a valuable life. So perhaps there is some sort of, there's something wrong with you not willing to do that, you know, just in that, you know, in protection of that, you know, it's like, you're not really giving up your life, but if you were to choose to give up this person's life, you actually are, they're going to die. Whereas you would be giving up a lot of your freedoms, but you would still have a life and you could still live a very valuable and flourishing life. And maybe there's some sort of value to that. Maybe that's kind of where Adam was getting along too, is it definitely seems different than just freedoms for freedoms or something. It almost seems like a life for freedoms, because in both situations, you still have a life, you know, whereas they won't. Okay, well, we're about like, I don't want to start another topic 4 minutes before we're about to end. So give me a second and I'll try and say something else that will spark conversation, or someone else. Just say something audacious, just some crazy shit. Please,
Well,
Nick.
I mean, I have just a question. I mean,
Yeah.
It's clear, in my opinion, that you can unplug, that it's morally permissible to end the violinist's life. So does anybody want to say the opposite? Does anybody want to say, no, you're morally required to stay in the bed and not unplug?
I would tend to say that, yeah. I think so.
Okay, and so what's the argument?
I mean, beyond everything I get before, I guess I kind of informing all of my mode of thought here is the whatever you want to call it, like a value analysis and axiological look at everything. Just the values, you know, that we're talking about here. I think the value of life is always going to be, you know, pretty high on the hierarchy of values, so to speak. But I think the value of morality is going to be even higher. So I guess what I mean to say by that is, if it comes to a moral action, if it comes to me committing a moral evil, I think I'm bound to do anything whatsoever to prevent that from happening. And I think depriving someone of their life is, in most cases, you know, going to constitute a moral evil. So even though it means my freedom, or as you chose to term it, you know, rights are going to be limited, I think rights just on this so-called hierarchy are going to be much lower. And whenever it comes to, you know, a lower and higher value, I think, you know, other things being equal, the higher value is going to kind of win out in
so
in my
life
picture.
is higher value than freedom. Okay, so like, what about this counter?
Oh, no. Well, maybe, I don't know. I'm not putting life and freedom necessarily in rank here. I think the morality is tied to whether or not you deprive someone of their life. So it's morality versus freedoms. That's what I want to contrast here, rather than life and
it also seems like morality, or sorry, life versus like physical freedoms. In this case, you would still have many freedoms, right? You'd be giving up a lot of physical freedoms.
Yeah,
but you would,
physical. That's what I mean. Yeah.
Yeah, you would still have a lot of other freedoms, like you were mentioning.
Freedom to perambulate. Yeah.
And I can sort of agree with where you're coming from, Adam, too. I can kind of say, like, yeah, you know, it definitely seems like that someone's life should have more value than someone's let's say physical freedoms. I can see where that argument's coming from for sure.
I think
Because I guess it's the, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead,
Yeah.
Noel.
to take a closer look at your understanding, you said the right to life, as in like otherwise you would be deprived of living. I think it's the wrong way to look at it, because people aren't entitled to like the right to life in a sense that we're only entitled the right not to be killed unjustly. So like, yeah, people have a right not to be killed, but only in a sense that like it would be unjust killing. Like someone else pointed out, like if you're walking down the street with your headphones in and you get run over, like it's not necessarily like a malicious way to go, and that the other person like wanted you to die. So I feel like it can be applied to this, because when you're like unplugging yourself from the violinist, you're not like killing them for the sake of killing them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it seems like different aspects of morality pretty come heavily into play here too, right? Like a deontological aspect of morality or thought of morality versus a utilitarian one, with the motivations behind it being important versus perhaps just the value, on a scale one to the other. Perhaps there, it depends on any individual conception of morality, or somewhere in between. I don't know. But okay, well, we'll stop it because it works out that it's exactly at 3 o'clock. And since we're doing 2 to 3, I'll go ahead and